Friends, we are going to talk about installation of AlmaLinux 9.2 production server with a lot of commonly used services. A production server is a server that is actually used in a working environment. There are a lot of Linux flavors. As we are aware, there are many flavors of Linux. Fedora, Ubuntu, Debian, SUSE, Mint, Puppy Linux, Arch Linux, and many more. Now, why are there so many flavors of Linux? People like different looks, need slightly different functionality, they need to run some specific applications. Not all applications are expected to run in all the environments. Some applications, some flavors are created to run in the specific environments. Some are created to minimize the size of the operating system. For example, Puppy Linux. Some other operating systems, some other flavors may be evolved just to use a particular window manager. Now there are two major types of Linux distributions, the server version and the desktop version. Well, the desktop versions, all the different flavors that we have listed earlier are desktop versions, and there are many more. They are typically characterized by the latest kernels, the latest applications that may not be fully tested before release. There is always a possibility of some broken applications, some applications leaking memory, possibility of crashes, and many more that makes these desktop versions unsuitable for server kind of an environment where the server is supposed to be continuously on and available. The server operating systems. Almost all the flavors have their own server versions. The server versions are very stable. Their kernels, applications are thoroughly tested for stability, memory leakages, broken links, etc. Almost all the server versions are available at some price. The price tag is typically for the service and the support the distributor provides. Red Hat has Red Hat Enterprise Linux RHEL. Earlier, Red Hat also used to support CentOS, the Community Enterprise Operating System, a clone of RHEL minus some Red Hat proprietary stuff. Red Hat has stopped regularly publishing the CentOS updates or upgrades. AlmaLinux and Rocky Linux have taken the space created by discontinuation of CentOS. They offer some reliability of RHEL. The best part is that they are free to download and are free to use. Therefore, I have chosen to use AlmaLinux. Now, what's this video series going to be all about? Well, there are a variety of videos on YouTube on Linux basics, commonly used commands, how to install and use various applications, but a very few videos on installing a proper production Linux server. Installation, configuration, maintenance of various services on such a server. During installation, configuration of available storage also needs proper consideration, taking into account the current and the future requirement. It also has to be properly understood. In this series of videos, I am planning to cover all these aspects. I am sure that the videos will be simple enough to understand, and with some practice, you too shall become experts in installing and maintaining a production Linux server. Installing AlmaLinux 9.2. It has started booting. and to be able to record everything, I have started a virtual machine. It's not an actual machine. I have started a QEMU virtual machine. Okay, we have to select language. We'll select English, United States, because that's a very commonly used language in our country. Let's say continue. Installation destination. We have got automatic partitioning selected, but we can also create a custom partitioning, and we can say done. So a custom partitioning will be selected. We want to have LVM partitions, very correct. So let us say first we want to add a boot point. So we'll say boot mount point. We need a size of roughly about 1024 M, that's 1 GB. Say add mount point. That 1 GB mount point is added. Then we can say add, we can say a home partition. A home partition will be added. Now please try to understand this. The home partition must be a separate partition on a production machine, because at times home directory gets full. You need to expand the partition, you need to extend the partition, and to be able to do that you need to have an LVM and you need to have a separate home. So I'm going to create a capacity of something like let's say 8 GB for the home mount point, and I'm going to have this as an LVM installed, and XFS is the file system, that's extended file system, and I'll label it as home. Please understand this, you need to have a completely different partition for home, or different mount point. Then let's call the root partition, that's the basic partition. We need root partition, and we'll select a size of 10 GB. Say add mount point, again it's an LVM, it is XFS, and now 1016, a million bits is left. So let's try to add this as a swap space. Actually the swap space should be 2 times the memory that you have allocated, or if the memory that the machine has is 4 GB, less than 4 GB, twice the memory, up to 4 GB and more, 4 GB and more, you need to have a swap partition of memory plus 2 GB. So don't make it too big a partition, otherwise your system will start thrashing, and I think you know what thrashing is. We'll say done. So the partitioning is done. We'll say accept changes, and that's it. So the installation is done. Now let's select what software we want to have. I would prefer having a workstation with all the server capabilities. So we will say, okay, let's say a server with GUI. We'll say we want a file and storage server, we want an FTP server, we want to have guest agents, we need to have a mail server, we need to have a NFS client, we need to have network servers, we need to have let's say remote desktop clients, we need to have remote management of Linux, we need to have a Windows file server, which will be Samba file server, and then we will need to have a virtualization client. That's what is required in many cases. And then maybe development tools, we need to have development of C, C++ and Java and so on. We need to have .NET tools, graphical administration tools, RPM development, वगैरह. That's all, that's not required right now. And let's have the system tools. So we have decided to install a server with GUI. So let's say this is done. Then we'll say kdump. We don't want kdump to be enabled because we don't have that much of memory with us. So let's say we don't want to have kdump. Then security profile, we will not also go into the security profile. We don't want to apply this security profile. So we'll say it is done. Then we will say root password. We'll say it is we will not lock this account. No, we don't want to lock it. We want to allow SSH login and through for root through password. We will say it is done. Then we'll create a user. We will make this user an administrator. We'll give the username test1. You can give an appropriate username that you like. I've given a strong password. Say done. And then finally now we are ready to install the system. So the system will get installed now. Let's wait for something like 40-45 minutes. Maybe we have a cup of tea and then come back. So for now, let's wait, and when the system comes to a completion, almost comes to a completion, we will try and do something about this. Okay, there we are, friends. We have almost finished everything. All the softwares are installed. Now we are going to reboot the system. So let us reboot the system and see how it starts, what all things happen, what all things need to be installed. Today we shall be doing only rebooting, and we shall try to log in as root or probably as test1. This will be the first video. In the second video we shall start installing various So there it is, system has rebooted. Well, various services are starting. Normally all this is hidden behind a screen, but I pressed Alt D to expose all what is going in the background, to see what is going on in the background. Well, yes, the system has booted. I'll log in as test1. You will not see root login by default. Well, there it is. I don't want a tour, so I'll say no thanks. AlmaLinux 9.2 is installed and ready to use. I'll first of all open a terminal. Now let's see how much is the usage. The usage is the root file system is 50% used. The home file system is 2% used. So now you know. Now when you go on adding users to this system, the users will start having their directories created, home directories created in the home folder. So for now we have installed everything. The GUI is working, everything is working. Currently we shall power off the system. There it is.